What's up, everybody? Welcome to this video. I want to talk about itemization. And putting this into context, we have Diablo 4 coming down the pipe. We've got this game coming out. At the time I'm recording this, it's coming out in a month. So there's a lot of chatter going on in the community, and some people have been with the Diablo franchise since Diablo 1. Other people are just joining in, just entering the fray now. And something that comes up a lot of times is this critique of itemization and, what is Diablo 4 trying to be? And oftentimes this is coming from a place of Diablo 2 players kind of wanting to get back to what made Diablo 2 and Diablo 1 so gritty and addictive and fun, and what a lot of those people feel got lost in translation in Diablo 3. And this is something that can rub a lot of people the wrong way whenever this topic comes up, because a lot of people, myself included, played Diablo 3 and had fun playing it. But let me extend the olive branch here and say, while I did have fun playing Diablo 3, without a doubt, the itemization was nowhere near as interesting as in Diablo 2. That's just subjective, that's my opinion. But I wanted to run through some info down here, some examples, and we could just kind of see, what does itemization really mean to people who were playing Diablo 2? What did itemization then look like when you were playing Diablo 3, and what might itemization look like in Diablo 4? What works, what doesn't work, that kind of thing. So what we see in front of us, if we zoom in on these carrion greaves, this is an example of a pair of boots that would be pretty fun to find if you were playing Diablo 2. They're fun to find because they have really good faster run walk. So this is something that's really desirable on your boots. You're moving faster. You have faster hit recovery, so you're not sitting there for 10 seconds after you get swiped at by an enemy, recovering. Anyone who played a necromancer in Diablo 2 is going to know that pain. And then you have resistances as well as better magic find. So you're moving faster. You're recovering from hits faster, you are living longer, and you're finding more of the good stuff. What's not to like when you find an item like this? And you get that little hit of dopamine when you find an item like this, is even if it's not that useful to you, maybe you have a better pair of boots, somebody out there is going to benefit from this, and you could maybe go trade for something that you would like. So then we had the rare items we just looked at. Now you have uniques. And in Diablo 2, I guess this is more relevant to Diablo 2 Classic. For those who don't know, Diablo 2 Classic, there was then an expansion called Lord of Destruction, and that's what most people think of when they talk about Diablo 2, except for yours truly. I always preferred playing Classic. Little Diablo hipster here for you. But these gloves, what made them unique is that they have some kind of unique aspect to them. You could probably never find on other gloves. So this makes them truly unique because this item slot is bringing you something that's going to be really difficult to find in any other item which you could put in that same gear slot. So for example, enhanced damage and cold damage on gloves, really hard to find, especially in combination with increased maximum mana. Pretty sure that last affix on there is impossible to find on other gloves in D2 Classic. But this, while on the surface, a mana-based build is going to really benefit from this. A lot of times when I was running around doing things on a barbarian, I would use these if they were available because they add that cold damage. So you hit some enemies, they're cold, they're chilled a little bit, they move slower. It was a nice little crowd control effect. So these are really fun, and they could serve a niche in your build or in your player experience as you level. And we had Mage Fist, just another example of unique items. Getting plus to fire skills on gloves, having faster cast rate on gloves, and mana regeneration. This was just one of those things where it was a really cool thing to find if you were a sorceress and you didn't just have some godly 1 in a trillion rare drop to have best in slot. So again, it has a unique effect, hence why it's called the unique item. And then finally, you had these. I think this is a crafted amulet. And can we get more pixels in here, please? But this is an example of a kind of, if this were to drop, this would be a godly drop. If you find it, this is something that you're going to get a really big dopamine spike. Because you're getting +2 to all skills. You're getting faster cast rate. This is giving you a massive bonus to strength, which means if you were allocating strength in your character, you might even consider making an entirely new character. Let's say you're a PvP character, and every single point in vitality that you get is a benefit to you in that PvP space. Well, now you potentially have 18 additional points to put into vitality, which is going to translate into big gains for you. So this is giving you a lot of these things you would be chasing: extra life, extra mana, really good resists, as well as those boosts to skills and faster cast rate. So you'd just be super stoked if you found something like this. And you'd be the only person on Earth with this exact drop. Assuming there aren't people duping and cheating. We won't even get into that. Yes, cheating existed in Diablo 2. Everybody knows it. And probably everyone was trying to trade for those duped items back in D2 Classic. So then we go into D3, and I'm not throwing shade at D3 here. I'm saying that if you cared about rares in Diablo 2, well, Diablo 3 was an interesting thing for you to encounter, because rares just didn't matter. Once you were done leveling, rares were just literal trash, or you would take them to the scrapyard and they'd be useful trash. You would disassemble them and you'd get the materials from them, but you were never using them. Then you have this aspect where some of those really unique items from D2, they came back, made a cameo in D3, but they weren't necessarily that unique. So even here we have two different uniques, Frostburn and Mage Fist, which are really kind of the same thing, except Frostburn rolls cold damage and Mage Fist rolls fire. You have this little secondary effect here where for Frostburn, instead of slowing when you chill, you have a chance to freeze, which is a nice benefit, but it's maybe not as compelling as being like a game changer. Seems pretty cool though. And honestly, I was excited if I found in either of these items. You still get a little bit of a dopamine hit there. And then in terms of amulets, instead of finding that godly roll that no one else has ever found, this kind of devolved into there's a certain type of amulet everyone's going to be looking for. Everyone can find the same version, and you are just hoping that you roll a better set of stats on it than someone else. So you find a legendary, you wish you had found an ancient. You find an ancient, you wish that you had found a primal ancient. And it's more a matter of getting the best roll possible on the same item than it is finding a completely unique item that no one else has. So coming into Diablo 4, what are we looking at in terms of itemization? So it does seem, we're going to have rares. Rares are going to have some utility in the game, which is good. That's a good improvement over Diablo 3, in my opinion. But the purpose that rares are going to be serving, it seems, is not to be best in slot. Now, I could be wrong about this. The game isn't out yet. But looking at this picture, I would guess that what this means is typically a rare is going to be the thing that you can get to 80% efficacy of what you want out of an item. And then you slap a legendary aspect on it, converting it into a legendary. But that rare, which was converted into a legendary, isn't quite as good as if you had found the perfect roll on the legendary to begin with. And this, I think, strikes a nice balance between the Diablo 2 and the Diablo 3 approach to itemization, because the grind, the never-ending grind, is still there. You're still trying to chase down that best possible roll of this item, but this kind of getting your build up and operational is still very possible when you find these rares. You have this economic practicality to that rare where you could just re-roll one of these affixes, one of these stats for a much cheaper cost than what you would roll on a legendary. But even when you do that and you get this item into a pretty good place, you're still on the hunt for the best version of that. Then we also can't forget the aspect of Diablo 4, which is unlike D3, where these legendary effects are only ever rolling on the same gear slot. In Diablo 4, there's going to be this other puzzle of which aspect do you put on which slot. So, for example, a two-handed staff if you have a two-handed weapon as a sorceress, whatever legendary aspect you put on that two-handed slot, it's going to have 100% effectiveness out of the or 100% increased effectiveness out of your legendary aspect. Whereas if you were to put this same thing onto another slot, like a ring, you would have a lower effectiveness. You'd have baseline effectiveness. So there's going to be some cool aspects there where the itemization isn't just about the item, it's also about what legendary aspects are you putting on items, and in which slots are you doing that. So then I want to kind of wrap this up with a comment on itemization in terms of Diablo 4, the way that they are approaching itemization, what really works, what is super exciting and what isn't. And this is from my subjective opinion. So I think these gloves over here are cool. I would look for these on a barbarian, and I would love to have them. But there is something going on here, which is that this is giving you a kind of passive damage bonus. This effect of these gloves, it's not like it's changing the way you're going to play your character. It's just saying your character is going to have more damage output. So you're taking some of your direct damage when you're berserking, and you're inflicting some percentage of that as extra damage over time. So that's pretty cool. You would rather have that than not have that, but it's not fundamentally changing the way you're going to approach a fight or the way you're going to build your character. With the nuance here that if you're causing bleeding now, there might be other synergies with other legendary aspects that you could use to benefit from that. So that's cool. But compare that kind of effect to the gloves of the Illuminator. Again, can we get more pixels? But Gloves of the Illuminator has this effect on Fireball where it's going to fundamentally change how Fireball behaves. So this isn't passively saying Fireball now also tickles the enemy for a little bit of extra damage, and you know it's passively happening in the background. You don't have to think about it. No, this is saying you have a trade-off here. If you choose to use this, then Fireball is now going to bounce as it travels, exploding each time it hits, but those explosions are going to be doing significantly less damage than they were before. And so for various builds, this might be really exciting. You know, if you are using Lucky Hit and every time Fireball hits, it's going to be having the same Lucky Hit chance each time. It's also having a chance to proc crits. It's also having a chance to proc the Fireball upgrade that applies some percentage of all the burning damage on an enemy each time it hits. You know, these are things that could really change the way you play your character. So this kind of itemization is really interesting to me. And this is the direction that I hope Diablo 4 goes, because if they give us a lot of creative ways to change how skills interact with other skills, and how, you know, where you had one doorway before, now you have 6, now you have 20. That kind of thing is really fun. It gives us a lot of creative license to build characters and adapt them to the play style that we find most interesting. Whereas skills like this, or, you know, effects like this, they don't quite open up that creativity. You know, saying your rain of arrows is always imbued with all imbuements at once, this is more so kind of giving you a unique amulet that's going to make your rain of arrows 3 times more powerful than it was before. It almost becomes a requirement for a build that's going in this direction. And maybe it's a niche build, but that niche build exists because there are some very specific items you need to make that build work. Whereas more skill effects like this, where it's not just purely, hey, get this unique and it's going to triple your damage output. Instead, it's this comes with a trade-off. Is this trade-off a net benefit to you and your playstyle? Well, that's up for you to decide. that's much more interesting and there's much more creativity going on there. So I hope we see more of this, and I do think that if they do more of this, then Diablo 4's itemization is on good track. That's not a real saying. On good track, what does that mean? But hopefully you get my point here, you get my meaning. And I also hope that this, if I can extend an olive branch here from all the people who sound like they're saying back in my day, Diablo 2, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of times these comments are coming from a place of itemization felt so good in Diablo 2 that I hope we don't completely repeat what happened in D3. I hope we don't continue watering down the itemization experience, and I hope that instead we spice it up and that there's something, that element of real fun comes back in the itemization. And I say that coming from a place where I thought Diablo 3 was plenty fun to play, but I think there was a lot of room to improve on the itemization front. So I'm hoping that they do it in D4. Show us more of this kind of thing. Give us creativity. Let us come up with those really cool play styles and cool effect synergies. And you don't have to spell it all out for us. Give us a little bit of room to be creative ourselves, and we'll have a blast. So that's all I wanted to say about this. And until the game comes out, hopefully I will see you in future videos.